I'm Joanne Poluch with Remarque Art Consulting. I'm here this morning with Susan Strachan in the Wellington County Archives and Museum in Fergus, Ontario. And Susan, we're here to talk about your Equimanity show, which is at the museum and will be here until November the 22nd. So we've paused in front of a very famous, iconic Canadian painting, which most viewers and art lovers in Canada would know. So this is called Horse and Train. It was done by Colville in 1954, and this is his version of Horse and Train. This is your painting. It's called Dark Horse and Oncoming Train. It was done in 2020. So we have two quite different versions of the same subject matter. So Susan, can you tell me please why your horse looks significantly different than Colville's horse?
This painting has always fascinated me, as you know, and I don't think Colville's horse is a literal horse at all. He could draw brilliantly from life, as all of his war art shows, and in fact there is one piece in the show just so that people can see it. I think this is a thinking being who has to derail a train. This particular coal train, as it happens, represents the war machine. What my research did was to take me on a long and fascinating trail.
A train ride, actually.
A train ride, perhaps. To start with, Colville says that this painting is the skeletal key to all my paintings. So if you understand this, you will have a better understanding of the rest of his work post-war.
Fascinating.
He used a quote, which is rare for any of his paintings, a quote from a poem by Roy Campbell, which was written in 1946, 47, somewhere just after the war. And it says, let me just get this quote absolutely right, "Against a regiment," notice the war connection, "I set a brain and a dark horse against an oncoming train."
Interesting.
I decided to read the poem by Roy Campbell, who subsequently actually became quite friendly with Colville. And Roy Campbell's poem also has a quote that he places under the title, which is "And none shall break ranks." And this is a quote from a poem by Wilfred Owen, just at the end of the World War I in 1814, who said, "None will break ranks, though nations trek from progress." So both of these poets are saying the war machine, until somebody does something, will go on forever, and it's massive and it's terrible. So I think the dark horse is simply a rank outsider coming from goodness knows where, and somehow sneaks up and wins the race and manages to derail the train. So why did Colville's art change so dramatically after the war? He was 24 in 1945, working as a war artist, and had been for a few months. And towards the end of the war, he was asked to, quote, document the horrors of Bergen and Belsen concentration camps. So imagine this 24-year-old, very young man from small town Nova Scotia, having to go into this place of horrors, not knowing what to expect. We know what it was like in this day and age. And in fact, I have been to Buchenwald prison camp, but of course totally sanitized, and you don't see any dead people, and you just see the mounds where all the bodies were buried. He spent 2 days drawing dying men, huge graves with moving bodies in it, and the stench and the cries. It must have been horrendous. I think that changed him.
I'm sure it did.
With a kind of PTSD. It would change most people.
I'm sure. So his horse looks like a fantasy, or as some people have coined it, phantasmagorical,
Yes.
or scholars have coined it magical realism. So it's obvious, Susan, in your interpretation that you're onto something interesting, and your horse, of course, is anatomically correct and is able to run along the tracks of the train tracks more realistically than this guy who seems to be floating somewhere on the tracks.
Actually, the horse is quite unrealistically galloping on railway tracks, because a horse never would.
True,
Which
true.
is another
True.
clue to the fact that this is not a real horse.
True. Well, Susan, you've put together an interesting exercise for everybody to think about, controversial to say the least. And so thank you for sharing a little bit of your thoughts about this particular painting. There are other paintings in the show that people need to come and take a look at as well. So thank you for a most thoughtful exercise, Susan.
Thank you.